I'm looking at a comparison between the Model 24 Tascam and the DP24SD. Now, I use the DP24SD for years, and I just think it's a brilliant piece of kit, and it just records so well, and it's so usable, and it's got so many great functions on it. But I did decide that I would upgrade, and now I've bought the Model 24 Tascam, which I hoped would be much better. So I'm going to look at some of the plus sides and some of the downsides to the Tascam 24. And really, was it worth the upgrade, and are they much better? Is the sound quality better, and things like that? Firstly, with this Model 24, the inputs are all along the top of the desk, which is quite nice because you can see what you're doing, and the outputs are here too. Where with the DP Model 24, all the inputs and outputs were on the back of it. In all fairness, I've used this one so long though, I could put my hand behind and just stick in whichever I wanted to use, because I knew where they were, so it didn't make a lot of difference. One consideration between the Model 24 and the DP is the fact of the size. This is a much bigger unit, it's a much heavier unit, it's much sturdier, it's much better built. Yeah, there is quite a big size difference in the two. Disadvantage with this one is whichever one you're putting your instrument in, you have to use that channel, and if you want to use the next channel, you have to physically swap the lead over into the next one. You can't put it in here and say, right, I want to record on channel 10 or so and still have it in here. You have to put it into channel 10 and then record on this. Where with the old one, you could assign each channel, so even if you're recording on this one, you could have it coming in from any of these inputs here, and you could just assign it across using this. So in that respect, I really like that. You didn't have to swap the leads, you could just go over, I'm recording on this channel next, so I'll log it into that one. The buttons on here are much better. You can touch them and they work. They're so much better. They feel better quality. On here, some of these buttons, you can press them forever before they work. And you have to really push them see, even now it's flashing, now it's a record, but you can push, and there's a couple along here. See, trying to stop it. A couple along here. See, no matter how hard I press that, it's not going to work. And I used to find that really frustrating. It's like they were done cheaply in my mind. When you want to locate, you keep pushing and pushing, and eventually it does it. And that's with all the buttons on here. And like I say, some of these along here, some of these channels I couldn't use because they just wouldn't work. And that was from new. So that I really like about the new one, the Model 24. The buttons work. You push them and you don't have to push them hard. You just press them and they work. Where with this one, it was always like, literally. There you go. You really have to push down on them. This one has a tuner, where the Model 24 doesn't have a tuner. This one has a metronome, and the Model 24 doesn't have a metronome. Now, the sound quality on this, I think, is really good. It's exceptional. For a home studio, it's really good, and I've always been pleased with it. But I was hoping when I moved to the Model 24, that would be the one thing that I would gain, was a much better quality sound. And I do think the sound quality is better on my recordings since I've had this. But saying that, the outputs on here don't carry all the effects or the graphic, and in that sense it's just really annoying, because you want to just loop it out the way I use it anyway. You have to work out when you get it which ones work for you and which ones are actually carrying the signal and the effects that you've added, or the equalizer that you've added. The screen on this one is not very clear at all. I think it's quite hard to read. My eyes aren't the best anyway. It's really small. So it's just it's one of them you have to look at dead on, and if you don't, you can't see it. Where this one is much clearer. It is a much better screen, much clearer, much nicer to look at, but it's also about twice the size, to be fair, so it's a lot easier to use in that sense. The big advantage with this that I felt, the reason I bought it, was because you've got a hands-on with the compression and with the graphic equalizer, with your effects, with your panning, where with the other one you actually have to come into the effects and things like that here to use this screen, and they are here, but it is more actually in the system. Where with this Model 24 now, each channel has got its own compression, equalizer, effects, pan. What I think is wrong, and also really disappointing, is the fact that they haven't added the graphic equalizer to the Bluetooth. Because in the manual it says, well, you know, the sound that you're bringing in should be good enough, or probably is good enough. It doesn't need that in their opinion. But the thing is, because I'm recording original music and then I loop it back round, and the way I record is I put so much done, because this thing crashes a lot, so I save it as I go along. So I put it onto my iPad and then I put it back onto the desk, and when I put it back onto the desk I put it back on through the Bluetooth. Well, because then you've lost your graphic, then I'm having to bounce it then onto a stereo track here. It's not the end of the world, but then I have to do it again. I mean, I've been doing it quite a bit now, so what I actually do is bring it in through the Bluetooth, but bounce it straight back over, because if you set it right, you can bounce it straight back over onto another track anyway. You know, loop it all around. I can do it. You shouldn't have to do it. They should have put in the graphic here. It just doesn't make sense to me. The other thing I find very disappointing about the Bluetooth is the fact you can bring things in on the Bluetooth, but you can't bounce it then back, say onto my iPad or whatever Bluetooth device you're having, which would make it so much easier just to transfer information or track or whatever you've recorded back into your computer or Bluetooth device, and that's a real letdown. I mean, it all looks very impressive, this effects and things like that, but these two for me make very, very little difference to the sound. This one does, this on the effects here. But again, you've got this effects and you've got a nice choice of effects in here. But the same as with the old one, the DP24SD, when you actually pick your effect, that is on every channel. You can't say, well, I'll have a Hall delay here and I'll just have a delay here and an echo or reverb or whatever on this channel. It doesn't work like that. It's on every channel. So whatever effect you pick, you can only have one. You can't actually pick it for each individual channel, and that's not great either. The sliders are just really, really nice. They work really well. There's no crackling, there's no bumping with it, but then it is brand new, so there shouldn't be. The sliders on the DP24SD are really short compared to the new one on the Model 24. They've always worked really, really well. I've never had any problem with these. I mean, they're great little sliders, and there's quite a lot of resistance with them as well. They don't feel cheap. The compression works really well, and all the switches. These here, I mean, it does say if you're recording or whatever you're coming in, have it on live, and then when you want to listen back, you have to put it over to this MTR here, which means then you're actually reading off your SD card, or if you're using the USB, if you put it on the PC there. But I found, even if you're recording, if it's on the MTR, whatever's coming in, it does work, it does record, but I don't know if it's any clearer or not really. But I do switch it over when I'm recording, but I have found if I have forgotten, it does record that. If you look at these stereo tracks, they've got no compression on there either, so that's been left off with them. The looping on this one works really, really well. There's a locate, and you can loop around, and I used to use this all the time when I was working at little bits of on guitar or something. I could find a little bit of track and just loop it around that piece where I wanted to work on and work over. With this one, it's just so difficult to do. You have to sort of set the indicators, and you have to set a preset so it will work or it won't work. Quite glitchy. I did buy the pedal, which works quite well, but once you've set it up, it sort of goes to the end, and then when it comes to the end, you have to sort of press it and start it again, and you have to wait, and there's this delay to loop around all the time. I mean, you can do it, and I have worked it out, but again, it's not that great. It was better on the DP24SD, I think, the loop. I mean, you come down and you've got the mute here, and again, they work really, really well, where with the old one, you had a mute button here, so you had to press the mute in, and then you could mute each track there, and then you have to take it back off there, and then it would change to record. As I say, they don't change to record, and then you have to put the mute back on to take the mutes off. Well, that wasn't a big problem. I mean, it worked really nicely, but like I say, this with the button things isn't fantastic. The one thing this one used to do was occasionally it would crash. I never lost my work, but it would crash. With this one, I have found that what can happen, it can freeze up, and if it freezes up, you have to turn it off and turn it back on, because it just won't do anything. I've lost my work a couple of times doing that. I do recommend when you're using this machine, you do need to save as you go along, especially if you play something you really like, you need to save it, because otherwise you can lose it. I found the more I use the tracks, or the more the information I've asked it to do, and it doesn't matter how much space is left on the SD card, it will crash. It doesn't at first. I mean, when you start putting like a drum in and this and that, it's okay, but once you start to say get 5 or 6 tracks down, or start using 5 or 6 channels with different instruments, it does start to crash, and it's like every third time or something. It's a lot, and that I think is very disappointing with this unit. On here you have got less channels that actually inputs. I mean, you've got a lot more choice with this for the inputs. Personally, I think this is a great unit, I really do. Is the sound quality a lot better? I wouldn't say so, no. I don't think it is a lot better. It is slightly better the way I use it. I do think it has increased my sound. If you're limited on budget, this is a great choice. It really is. I've used it for a long time. It was just, you know, I wanted to treat myself, and I did. I bought the Model 24 and it is fantastic, but it isn't without its limitations, and it isn't without things that don't work on it very well. I mean, this little graphic here, it only comes out at certain outputs and things like that. I mean, it uses the same SD card as the other one. It's a little, you just click it in and click it out and it's just there. I mean, ultimately, if you can play and you can play really well, you're going to get something great out of this. You really are. It's not just about the equipment. It doesn't matter how good the equipment are. If you can't play, it's not going to sound great no matter how great it is. And it has improved my sound, but I wouldn't say it was massive.
Most of my thoughts have laid down together. It's not for loved ones or the people I hate. It's just something I do when the hour gets late.